Welcome to Marble Rundown, your source for the most important marble news of the week that you need to know. Now here's your hosts, Ballmer and Dan Orboole.
Hello and welcome to week 2 of Marble Rundown. I'm Bob and he's Dan, and there's no time to waste. You know, Dan, there was a lot to talk about this week.
Tell me about it. We've got 3 Marble League events in the span of 1 week, the latest race in the Marbula E circuit, the Marble League Showdown right around the corner, and now only 1 event left until we crown our Marble League championship. We've got a lot to get to this show.
That's right, Dan. But first, we've got a surprise segment called You Blew It, Dan, where I'll apologize to our viewers for all the mistakes you made last week.
Do we really have time for this? Didn't you just say we had no time to waste?
Well, as a great marble once said, time you enjoy wasting is never time wasted. Here are the gaffes. Coach Quickly is female, not male. In our segment on the Savage Speeders, Dan said Velocity had been demoted, but in fact, Velocity was recently promoted. And lastly, the coach of Balls of Chaos is Harmony, not Disarray. Rookie mistakes. You blew it, Dan. So there's that, and a big thanks to our viewers for catching Dan's failures. Don't forget to nitpick the show in the comments so we can all hold him to the highest of standards.
Okay, thanks Bob. Now, onto the sports. So, first up is Marbula E, which makes it stop in Berlin this week.
That's right, Mercedes has put together a masterclass in Marbula E. First in Paris and second in Seoul and Jakarta, it's looking like Mercedes versus the world leading into the 4th race of this circuit. After a disappointing qualifier, Mercedes showed us their mettle in the Prix. Right from the start, Mercedes joined Techeetah, Porsche, and Neo 333 at the head of the pack. BMW, despite winning the previous race in Jakarta and even winning the pole qualifying position here, fell behind early and never really recovered. Things kicked into gear with 2 minutes to go. With first place on the line, Techeetah, Porsche, and Neo 333 all found themselves on the same step of the conveyor belt, with Mahindra only a step behind. After a great final lap that saw several lead changes, in the end it was Porsche screaming across the finish line with Mahindra close behind in second, and the circuit-leading Mercedes finishing 5th. Thanks to the win, Porsche pulls within 12 points of Mercedes, narrowing the gap between Mercedes and the rest of the field. Mahindra jumps to 44 points, but they're still well behind the leaders.
Honestly, it's a shame that this is the race that had to be run in the midst of all this other Marble League excitement, because it was a phenomenal race to watch. So many different lead changes at the top and really some incredible moves in the final stretch of the course.
Yeah, they were really weaving and jockeying at the end there. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time.
I actually want to focus on Mahindra's performance in these final moments. You know, they entered Berlin in the middle of the pack, not having done anything really exceptional yet, and they didn't set themselves up for success, finishing the qualifiers with a 21.88, good enough for only 10th place. So from the get-go, they're at a disadvantage. But I want you to watch as this race progresses, how they slowly and steadily fight their way back into the picture. They have a great lap here with 3:30 left to get themselves back into the running. But the big fun moment is here. So we mentioned this moment in the recap, but this is great. So the top 3 are all eyeing each other all the way up the ramp, but no one has noticed Mahindra just 1 track behind them. Then they reach the top and bam, Mahindra zips in to take second.
Whew, what a sneaky move.
So they go on to jump around between 1st and 3rd, including this incredible little pass with 30 seconds left, and wind up finishing a very close 2nd behind Porsche. A really exciting finish for the team. There's a lot more in this race we could dissect, but it is time to move on to the big news of the week, the Marble League. So the high jump returns for the first time since 2017. Hoping to follow up last week's gold medal are the Savage Speeders, but after clearing 35.5 centimeters in 2 jumps, no. They failed to clear 36 centimeters and finished last place. Last year's champion Raspberry Racers also take an early exit, along with the Oceanics. The Minty Maniacs and Midnight Wisps come in looking to make the jump to first place and show some early promise, clearing each jump in round 1 on the first attempt, but end up capping out at 38 and 37 centimeters respectively. Both of them go on to finish in the bottom half of the event. The O'Rangers showed up looking to extend their lead atop the standings and pull it off in dramatic fashion, peaking at 40.5 centimeters, taking home the gold and earning a new world record in the process. This marks their 3rd gold of the season and 7th total medal. The Bumblebees and Mellow Yellow round out the podium, with the Bumblebees earning their 1st medal of their debut season. The O'Rangers win and a number of low finishes from other teams near the top of the standings means that the gap for first place grew massively this event, and now sits at a 35-point lead.
Alright, so Tuesday was the debut of the Aquathlon, a head-to-head team event with a tournament-style bracket. It's simple. The first team with 3 marbles across the finish line advances. Given that it was, after all, an Aquathlon, most fans didn't have a lot of hope for the Oceanics, and they really had their work cut out for them. Their first-round matchup was against the league-leading O-Rangers. But against all odds, the Oceanics overcame their hydrophobia in spectacular fashion, knocking off the O-Rangers and going on to finish a respectable 6th. So with the O-Rangers out of the way, the Wisps and Speeders had an opportunity to gain some grounds in the standings, and both teams took full advantage, scoring victories in all their early races and meeting in the final for a high-stakes gold medal fight. The Wisps got out to an early lead in the water and looked to be running away with it, but with some excellent drafting work by the Speeders, they made it close. After a photo finish, ultimately the Wisps took it all, nabbing themselves a crucial 25 points. In the bronze medal match, the Hazers, ever a consistent contender in water events, rounded out the podium by edging out Team Momo. After the dust settled, a number of teams were eliminated from gold medal contention, including the Crazy Cat's Eyes, who it seems are once again unable to perform when it counts in the late stages of the season.
The last event of the week was the fan-favorite collision event, with some new added tricks on behalf of the host team. Some crazy new Electron contraptions added a new element to the event and made sure competitors stayed on their toes. 5 teams came into the event on the verge of podium elimination, and for these teams it was a bloodbath, as Team Galactic, Crazy Cat's Eyes, Team Momo, and the Raspberry Racers were all knocked out in the group stages. The other team on the brink, the Hazers, managed a 4th place finish, but with the Minty Maniacs bronze, it was too little too late. But most of the eyes in the press box were focused on the O-Rangers Savage Speeders rivalry, to see if the Speeders' remarkable late-season run could continue. The O-Rangers took an early exit in the group stages, finishing 16th and giving the Speeders a window to close the gap in the standings. And this team cannot be stopped right now. After going undefeated in the group stage, the Speeders powered past Mellow Yellow, the Minty Maniacs, and the Thunderbolts to claim yet another gold medal. So the Thunderbolts and Minty Maniacs round out the podium. The Maniacs' bronze medal means they stay in contention for a podium spot, while the silver for the Thunderbolts stands as their first medal of the season. Only 2 teams still remain without a medal this year, the Bumblebees and the Green Ducks.
That's it for the recaps. Whew, that was a lot to go over. There's so much action, I don't even know where to start.
Don't worry, I'll kick us off. That's why they pay me, one of us has to carry the show.
No, Dan. Where'd you get that idea? We don't pay you. Your salary's a tax-deductible charitable donation.
Ha! Okay, you pick something then. We don't have all day.
Alrighty, Dan. Why don't we get started by talking about where teams sit in the overall standings. If I'm reading this right, Rhonda tells me there are only 3 teams that still have a chance to win the Marble League this year.
Oh yes, that's right, Bob. So we've got the O-Rangers, Savage Speeders, and the Midnight Wisps there. Now, importantly, the Savage Speeders and the O-Rangers are actually guaranteed a podium finish, and are going to auto-qualify for next year's Marble League as a result. The only teams on that auto-qualification bubble are the Wisps and Minty Maniacs.
Didn't a wise marble once say that with...
Hey, you've used a lot of our time on bad jokes, and there's a few things I'd like to actually touch on before we need to move on. So, first of all, tactics on the Aquathlon. Some teams that did the best implemented a neat little strategy where the 4th marble completely abandoned all hopes of finishing with a decent time in order to push the rest of the team forward. It was a clever move that often made the difference in the close runs and the blowouts alike. It makes perfect sense given the rules, and I bet any teams that didn't take that approach are feeling a bit silly about it now.
Well, it's very a team-centered play. You've got to put your pride to the side here and do your job.
Definitely. It's not as easy as it looks. So, I know you're a huge fan of the collision event, Bob. Anything this week that stood out to you?
Well, there were definitely a lot of things new, both in tactics and in the arena itself. Our good friend and absolute legend Greg Woods already mentioned the Savage Speeders' new formation that paid off in the late stages of the event. And those crazy new doodads added a huge element of chaos that we'd never even seen before. Look, I'll tell you, if you don't get excited seeing those electrons being hurled across the arena and lighting up those competitors, you're definitely dead inside. Or a Team Momo fan with some serious PTSD. I trust when you make your Marble report on this event, you'll feature a musical montage of Electron chaos?
The idea had occurred to me. We'll see.
Well, you heard it here, folks. And with that, we'll be moving along. A second saved is a cheesy pun earned.
God, you need a lobotomy.
Oh my gosh, lobotomy. Always me, Dan. What about us?
Cut to commercial. We'll be right back with the deep dive, crystal ball predictions, and comments from you, the viewers. And no more puns. We'll see you in a minute.
And we're back. So obviously the Savage Speeders are the hot topic right now, but let's not forget about the O-Rangers. It looked like there was no way they could blow this lead. Fast forward and we've got one event to go, and they're down 10 points to the Savage Speeders. What happened here?
Well, first off, obviously full credit to the Speeders. But after a great start this week with the high jump gold, the O-Rangers have tanked in both the following events, and there's no one marble to single out here. Both of these events have been team events, so there's a lot of blame to go around. There's nothing about these events in particular that should have been a big problem for the team. This is scarily reminiscent of the huge comeback that they were the ones to pull off back in 2017, and I think you can really only point to complacency as a cause. The Rangers roster remains unchanged from its original 2016 lineup, so they should be aware how quickly these sorts of things can change.
I know. You know that Coach Rango's going to be all over them in the locker room for letting this lead slip away. Hey, you know what? For more on this in our deep dive, we're going to turn it over to our Marble on location at the Andromedome, Drew Diskman. How's it going, Drew?
Well guys, the atmosphere here has been pretty crazy over the last few weeks, and it's been a delight to sit here amongst the fans for every event. And wow, did they love the collision event, and from what I've heard, the obstacles they've added were extremely well received by the fans, and it's nice to see that they had a big impact.
So what have you got for us for the deep dive today?
Well Dan, now that we've been able to review the tapes, I want to take you back to one of the early heats between the Green Ducks and O-Rangers, two teams that have been on entirely different paths this year. So the strategy we see succeed most often is when a team bunches up tight together in an attempt to break apart the opponent's wall. It's a tried and true tactic, and it is a lot of fun to watch as a fan. But there were some really interesting mind games coming from Coach Bombay in the opening run. Bombay anticipates the O-Rangers playing it safe to protect their lead atop the standings, and capitalizes. When the O-Rangers form their tight pack, the Green Ducks split apart and allow them to pass right through. When the tightly packed O-Rangers arrive at the wall, they explode out into the sides and lose a number of marbles off the edge immediately. And wouldn't you know it, the Ducks take the matchup, 3-1.
And just like that, a last place finish.
Yep, and one that could prove really costly.
Drew, thanks again for giving us your time. Enjoy the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll hear from you again soon. That's it for the deep dive, so let's head on to our next segment, Crystal Ball. Now, before we get to this week's picks, I think we should take a look at how we fared last week.
Oh, Dan, I don't think there's any need for...
No? You sure? Well, alright then. What have we got for us this week?
So for you viewers at home, the Marble League Showdown has actually happened by the time you're watching this, but it hasn't happened for us at time of recording. So rather than embarrass ourselves by making predictions you'll all know to be wrong, we'll move on to Sunday's event. So Sunday's going to bring with it the marathon, and I think we can both agree, right Dan, that a good predictor of success is going to be the Marbula 1.
Yeah, I rewatched that this week as well. So who were you thinking?
Well, I know you could pretty easily look at the results and just pick the Savage Speeders.
It's definitely a starting point.
But hold on, I'm going to pick a team that did earn a number of high finishes in Marbula 1, but still has something to prove here in the Marble League. Of course, I'm talking about the Green Ducks. It's been a disastrous season for them here, and you know the team is desperate for a medal. Coming home empty-handed would really be a hard pill to swallow for them.
You know, I don't mind that prediction, Bob.
Well, thank you.
And as a known Green Ducks fan, I really hope that you're right. But I still would go with the Savage Speeders, even if you set aside the fact that they won Marbula 1. They've got a reputation for doing incredibly well down the final stretch. There's this late season push they've got going on, and this is just the sort of event they do well in. I really think that the Rangers are going to have to pull off some kind of miracle to get that top spot back.
Wait, hold on. We always have to be careful when we're talking about the O-Rangers. If you tick off O-Rangers fans, you know your comment section is going to be flooded with O's. And on the subject of fan reactions, it's time for...
From the Fans.
Hey, going back to the Savage Speeders, didn't we ask fans what they thought about the Speeders last week?
That's right, Bob. Our question was, do you think the Savage Speeders are for real, or that they've had just a few lucky events? And across the board, we seem to have a pretty high IQ audience, as the majority of commenters were pretty convinced that this team is the real deal. Generic Turtle always believed. Look at them now, slowly but surely in the background, climbing up the standings. They know what they're doing.
Huh. Is there something about bickering in there?
Ha, I don't think we've ever bickered, right?
All right. Well, BA had a similar take, saying, just lucky, never. Savage Speeders are the real deal, throwing in a definitive #speed is key. But then on the other side of the spectrum, though, we had CBTV telling us the speeders have been lucky, alluding to a possible burnout. Thoughts, Dan?
Well, there's only one event left and anything can happen, but it definitely isn't shaping up this way from what we've seen so far. And then lastly, a big shout out to HGT Penguin calling the Thunderbolt's strong performance in this week's collision event. We might have a young analyst in the making here.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm really hoping for the best for these Thunderbolts. That silver's gonna help them out big time. Anyways, thanks to all the comments on last week's rundown. Do you want to be featured in our next episode? Drop a comment telling us what you think.
Yes, and don't forget to answer today's question of the day. Who do you think is going to be announced as the hosts of next year's Marble League? We'll feature some of your takes in next week's rundown.
And that's this week's show.
Don't miss next week. We'll be back to take a closer look at the crowning of this year's Marble League champion.
Looking forward to it, Dan. Remember, same time, same place. It's Marble Rundown on TMR.
So long, everyone.